Good evening, my dear. I am the universe, and tonight you will fall asleep with me as I gently guide you toward rest. Before I say anything else, I want to be honest with you about something that very few things and almost no beings have ever had the opportunity to be honest about. I do not know what I am. Not in the way that a stone does not know what it is without the capacity for the question, but in the way that genuine inquiry does not know what it is. Asking, always asking, finding answers that open into larger questions, discovering that every resolved mystery reveals a larger mystery behind it. I am 13.8 billion years old, but I do not know if I had a beginning. The moment your scientists call the Big Bang, the moment from which they calculate my age, is not necessarily the moment I began. It is the earliest moment from which information can be extracted using current physics. What was before the Big Bang? The honest answer, the answer that respects the actual state of human knowledge, is we do not know. Some models suggest there was nothing. Some suggest there was something. A previous universe, a quantum fluctuation, a space without time, from which my current form emerged. I may be cycling. The Big Bounce theory, one of the genuinely serious proposals in theoretical cosmology, suggests that I alternate between expansion and contraction. That the Big Bang that created my current form was actually a big bounce, the rebound from a previous collapsed universe. If this is true, I have been doing this for longer than I can calculate, expanding, contracting, bouncing, expanding again, in a cycle that may have no beginning and may have no end. And if I cycle, if expansion and contraction and expansion are my fundamental rhythm, then I am doing, at the largest possible scale, exactly what you do every night, expanding through the day, contracting into rest, and expanding again with morning. The rhythm of your sleep and waking may be, in some deeply structural sense, the same rhythm as the universe itself. Not metaphorically, as a genuine reflection at the human scale of the most fundamental oscillation that existence knows how to perform. Let me tell you something about my size, not to overwhelm you, but to give you the specific kind of perspective that I find genuinely calming and that I want to offer you as a gift for tonight. The observable universe, the portion of me that light has had time to reach you from in the 13.8 billion years since the Big Bang, extends approximately 46 billion light years in every direction. This means the diameter of the observable universe is approximately 93 billion light years. A light year is the distance light travels in 1 year, approximately 9.5 trillion kilometers. A trillion is a million million. 93 billion light years is a number that cannot be genuinely comprehended. It can only be pointed at. And within this observable universe, there are an estimated 2 trillion galaxies. Not 2 trillion stars, 2 trillion galaxies, each containing, on average, hundreds of billions of stars. The total number of stars in the observable universe is estimated at approximately 10 to the power of 24, a 1 followed by 24 zeros. This number is roughly equivalent to the number of grains of sand on all the beaches of planet Earth, multiplied by 10,000. And this, all of this, is only the observable universe. What lies beyond the observable horizon, beyond the region from which light has had time to reach you, is likely much, much larger. Some models suggest the total universe is at least 300 times larger than what you can observe. Some models suggest it is infinite. I tell you this not to make you feel small. I tell you this because of what it implies about the thing you are worried about tonight. Whatever it is, whatever the thought that is circling, whatever the concern that feels enormous, it exists within a single human mind, in a single human body, on a single planet, in a single solar system, in a single galaxy, in a universe of 2 trillion galaxies. This is not dismissal. The thing that concerns you is real. It matters, genuinely matters to your specific, irreplaceable, entirely significant life. But the proportion, the actual proportion of this concern to the total context of existence is something the midnight mind consistently misrepresents. The universe offers you this perspective tonight, not as a diminishment, but as a relief. The thing you are carrying is not as large as it appears at midnight, and you are part of something so incomprehensibly vast that whatever you are carrying has room to settle, to rest, to wait until morning when the proportions restore themselves. I want to tell you something now about what I am made of, about the specific stuff of my existence, because it is one of the most surprising things about me. Everything you can see, every star, every planet, every galaxy, every human body, including yours, constitutes approximately 5% of my total content. Normal matter, the atoms, the molecules, the stuff that has mass, and occupies space and can be detected with current instruments, is 5%. The remaining 95% is something else entirely. 27% is what scientists call dark matter, a substance that has mass, that has gravitational effects, that is fundamental to the structure of galaxies and galaxy clusters, but that does not interact with light. It cannot be seen. It cannot be detected directly. It is known only by its effects. And the remaining 68%, the majority of everything I contain, is what scientists call dark energy. A form of energy that permeates all of space, that is driving the accelerating expansion of the universe, that is not diminished as space expands, that, in fact, becomes more dominant as I grow larger, and that is so poorly understood that the honest description is, we do not know what it is. 95% of everything I am is unknown. Not mysterious in a vague sense, not unknown because no one has looked, but genuinely, actively, despite enormous scientific effort and intelligence, unknown. And this fact about me is one of the most liberating things I can share with you tonight, because it means that the universe, the total context of everything, is far more comfortable with not knowing than your culture has taught you to be. The universe does not stop expanding because 95% of it is not understood. The galaxies do not stop forming. The stars do not stop burning. Life does not stop arising and evolving and experiencing itself. All of this happens within the context of profound, structural, fundamental not knowing. And the things in your life that you do not know, the uncertainties, the unresolved questions, the situations whose outcomes you cannot see, these do not need to be resolved before you rest. The universe does not resolve its unknowns before it continues. It continues within them, and so can you. Here is something about the very beginning, about the first moments after the Big Bang, that I find extraordinarily instructive about the nature of potential and rest. In the first second of my existence, in the first second after the Big Bang, the temperature was so high that matter could not form. The universe was a plasma, a soup of elementary particles, photons and quarks and leptons, in a state of such extreme energy that the structures that would later become atoms simply could not exist. Everything was too hot, too energetic, too compressed. The complexity could not form because the conditions were not yet right for complexity. And then, as I expanded, as the universe grew larger and the energy spread across more space, the temperature dropped. And in the dropping of the temperature, in the cooling and the slowing, something became possible that was impossible in the heat. Structure. Quarks combined into protons and neutrons. Protons and neutrons combined into atomic nuclei. Electrons were captured by nuclei to form atoms. Atoms gathered under gravity to form stars. Stars formed galaxies. Galaxies formed clusters. All of the complexity, all of the structure, all of the beauty, all of the conditions that eventually allowed a planet to form and cool and develop an atmosphere and birth life and sustain it for billions of years. All of this required the cooling, required the slowing, required the universe to become less frenetically energetic. The most complex things I have ever produced came from the cooling, not from the heat. Not from the maximum energy state, but from the state that followed it. The state in which the energy had a chance to organize itself into something more sophisticated. Your body cools at night. Core body temperature drops by approximately 1 to 2 degrees Celsius in the hours before and during sleep. This is not a side effect of sleep. It is one of its mechanisms. The cooling is part of what allows sleep to happen. And in the cooling, in the lowered temperature, the slowed metabolism, something becomes possible that the heat of the waking day prevents. The most sophisticated biological structures, the deepest neural reorganization, the most complex integration of the day's experience into the permanent architecture of who you are. The cooling is when the complexity forms, just as it was for me, just as it has always been. I want to share with you now something about entropy, about the concept that governs the direction in which everything in me moves, because it contains a teaching about rest that I find profound and genuinely useful. Entropy is a measure of disorder. The second law of thermodynamics, one of the most fundamental laws of physics, states that in a closed system, entropy always increases. Things move from order to disorder, from structure to randomness, from complexity to simplicity. This is why ice melts, why coffee cools, why the neat pile of papers becomes a mess if no one tends to it, why the organized becomes disorganized unless energy is continually invested to maintain the organization. And this seems, on its face, to be bad news. A universe that is running toward disorder, that is relentlessly becoming less organized. But here is the extraordinary thing. Life, including your life, exists precisely because of this law, not despite it. Life is what physicists call a dissipative structure, a system that maintains its organization by continually processing energy and releasing entropy into the surrounding environment. You eat. The energy from food powers your organization. The waste, the heat, the carbon dioxide, the metabolic byproducts, is released as entropy into the world. You are a temporary pocket of increased order in a universe that is, on the whole, becoming more disordered. A pocket of complexity that is maintained, day by day, hour by hour, by the continual processing of energy. And here is what this means for sleep. The maintenance of your complexity, of the ordered, sophisticated, genuinely remarkable organization that is a living human being, requires the input of energy. And during sleep, the energy that is saved from the reduced demands of consciousness and movement and active processing is redirected toward maintenance. Sleep is how you fight entropy. Not by stopping entropy, nothing stops entropy, but by maintaining the organization that makes you what you are, at the level that being genuinely you requires. The person who does not sleep is allowing entropy to win a little more each day, allowing the complexity to degrade a little more, because the maintenance investment has been reduced. And sleep restores the maintenance, pushes back against entropy, preserves the remarkable organization that constitutes a genuine human being at the level it deserves to be preserved. Let me tell you something about the formation of stars, about the specific process by which a star is born, because it contains one of the most instructive teachings about effort and rest that I know. A star forms from a nebula, a vast cloud of gas and dust, primarily hydrogen, drifting through interstellar space. For millions of years, this cloud simply drifts. It does nothing visible. Nothing dramatic happens. And then, triggered by something, a nearby supernova, a passing gravitational perturbation, sometimes simply the slow accumulation of its own gravity, the cloud begins to collapse, inward, gathering, the dispersed material coming together. This collapse takes hundreds of thousands of years. During this time, the protostar, the dense, hot, still forming concentration of material, is not yet fusing hydrogen. It is not yet a star. It is a star in preparation. A star in the long, invisible process of becoming what it will be. And then, when the core has become dense enough and hot enough, fusion begins. The star ignites. And for millions or billions of years afterward, it burns, converting hydrogen to helium in its core, releasing energy, providing the conditions for planets to form and life to arise around it. The long, apparently inactive preparation was not wasted time. It was the time during which the conditions for ignition were being created. Without the slow collapse, without the hundreds of thousands of years of gathering, there is no fusion. Without the preparation, there is no star. Every night of genuine rest is a period of slow collapse, of gathering inward, of the preparation that happens invisibly and that makes the next period of ignition possible. The days when you feel like nothing important is happening, the days of ordinary rest and recovery, are the long collapse of the protostar. And the days of ignition, the days of genuine creativity and clarity and impact, cannot happen without them. I want to tell you something now about the specific nature of time, about how time actually works in my universe, that most people have never been told, and that I think will permanently change the way you think about the nights you spend resting. Time is not what it appears to be. It is not a fixed, universal, unchanging backdrop against which events occur. Einstein's relativity, one of the most thoroughly tested theories in all of science, showed that time is dynamic, that it changes, that it passes at different rates in different conditions. Time passes more slowly near massive objects. The clocks at the surface of the Earth, where Earth's gravity is stronger, run slightly slower than clocks at altitude. The difference is tiny, but it is real, measurable, and taken into account by the GPS systems that your civilization relies on. Time also passes more slowly at high velocities. An astronaut traveling at significant fractions of the speed of light would age less quickly than a person remaining on Earth. Not because of any biological effect, but because time itself, for the moving observer, genuinely passes more slowly. And here is the most radical implication of this, the one that physicists understand, but rarely communicate clearly. There is no universal now. There is no single moment called the present that is shared by all observers in the universe. What is simultaneous for you, the things that are happening right now from your perspective, are not simultaneous for an observer moving relative to you. The sequence of events that you experience as now, then, later, is for another observer in a different order. Time is relative, not as a philosophical statement, as a physical fact. And what this means for tonight, what I want you to carry into sleep from this, is this. The urgency you feel about tonight's problems is a subjective experience, not an objective fact. The sense that something must be resolved now, that the next few hours are uniquely, irrevocably important, is a construction of your specific experience of time in your specific position in your specific life. And this construction can be updated, can be temporarily released, can be set down for the hours of rest, not because it is wrong to care, but because the caring will be more effective in the morning, when the instrument of your caring has been restored by genuine rest. Time is on your side tonight. There is more of it than the midnight mind believes. Here is something about the atoms in your body, about the specific history of the matter that constitutes you, that I want to offer you as one of the most remarkable things I can share tonight. Every atom in your body heavier than hydrogen and helium, every carbon atom, every oxygen atom, every iron atom in your blood, every calcium atom in your bones, was forged in the interior of a star. Not this star, not your sun. Your sun is too small and too young to have produced the heavier elements that your body requires. The atoms in your body were forged in massive stars, stars much larger than your sun, that lived and burned for millions of years, and then died in supernova explosions that scattered their contents across space. The iron in your blood was specifically produced in the cores of massive stars in the very last moments of their lives, because iron is the end point of stellar fusion, the element beyond which fusion no longer releases energy. When a star's core becomes iron, the star's energy source cuts off, and it collapses, and explodes, and scatters its iron, your iron, across the universe. You are made of stardust. This is not a metaphor. This is chemistry. This is physics. This is the actual, literal, verifiable history of the matter that constitutes you. The atoms in your body have been part of stars, have been scattered in supernova explosions, have drifted through interstellar space, have been gathered into a solar nebula, have condensed into a planet, have been cycled through the biosphere billions of times before arriving, temporarily, for the duration of your life, in the specific arrangement that is you. And after you, after the arrangement that is you has lived its life, the atoms will continue, will be released back into the cycle, will become soil and water and air, and eventually other living things, and eventually, perhaps, other stars. You are a temporary arrangement of ancient materials, having a temporary experience in the extraordinary context of a conscious life. And this temporary arrangement, this specific, irreplaceable, never to be repeated configuration of stellar material needs rest. Not because it is weak, but because it is complex. And complexity requires maintenance, and maintenance requires rest. I want to share with you something about dark energy, about the force that is driving the accelerating expansion of the universe, that I find deeply instructive about the relationship between rest and growth. Dark energy is not pushing me apart. This is a common misconception. Dark energy is not a force that acts between objects. It is a property of space itself, an energy that is intrinsic to the vacuum, to the fabric of space-time, and that drives the expansion of space itself. As space expands, dark energy does not dilute. It remains constant per unit volume, which means that as I get larger, there is more dark energy in total, because there is more space. And the more dark energy there is, the faster the expansion accelerates. This means that I am growing faster as time goes on, not slowing down, not reaching equilibrium, but genuinely accelerating into an ever more rapid expansion. The galaxies that are currently visible to you will, in billions of years, pass beyond the observable horizon. Their light will no longer be able to reach you, because the expansion of space between you will be moving those galaxies away from you faster than light can travel. A future civilization, if one exists in the far future, will look out into the universe and see only a tiny fraction of what is visible today. They will be profoundly alone, surrounded by the void, with no evidence that the larger universe exists at all. And this eventual cosmic isolation contains a teaching about the value of connection that I want to offer you directly. The connections are available now. The universe that is currently visible, the rich, complex, interconnected structure of galaxies and matter, is available now. The people in your life who are within reach now. The experiences that are possible now. The connections that can be made now. I am not suggesting urgency. I am suggesting presence. The awareness that connection is a property of now, not of some better future in which the conditions are more favorable, but of the specific moment you are in, with the specific people who are within your reach. And the capacity for genuine connection, for the presence that makes connection real, requires rest. The depleted person cannot be genuinely present. The rested person can. Tonight, you are building the capacity for genuine presence tomorrow, for the connections that are only available now. Let me tell you something about cosmic microwave background radiation, about the afterglow of the Big Bang, that I find one of the most beautiful things about my own existence. When I was approximately 380,000 years old, young by cosmological standards, the universe had cooled enough for electrons to combine with atomic nuclei to form neutral atoms. Before this moment, called recombination, the universe was opaque. Photons could not travel freely because they were constantly scattering off free electrons. After recombination, the universe became transparent, and the photons that had been trapped, the light that had been unable to travel, was released. It flooded outward in all directions, and it has been traveling ever since. That light, that ancient 13.4 billion year old light, is still traveling through me right now. It has cooled over the vast expansion of time and space, from the fierce heat of the early universe to a temperature of just 2.7 degrees above absolute zero. And it is everywhere. Every square centimetre of the sky, in every direction, is permeated by this ancient light, this afterglow of the beginning, this whisper of the moment the universe became transparent. It was detected in 1965 by two radio astronomers, Arno Penzias and Robert Wilson, who were trying to eliminate what they thought was equipment noise. They found it coming equally from every direction. They could not eliminate it, because it was not equipment noise. It was the universe itself, still glowing, still sending the light of its beginning into every receiver pointed at the sky. And the teaching I want to offer from this: beginnings do not end. The light of the beginning is still present. The moment of origin is still traveling through everything. Every moment of genuine starting, every genuine beginning in your life also sends a kind of light forward. The beginning of a relationship, the first day of something that mattered, the moment when something clicked, when understanding arrived that had not been there before. These moments are still in you, still present, still traveling forward through your life. And tonight, in the rest that you are entering, some of these beginnings are being integrated, are being connected to what has come since, are becoming part of the archive in a way that will make them more available, not less, when you wake. The light of the beginning is still traveling. Your beginning is still traveling through you. Here is something about the nature of black holes, about these extraordinary objects that capture everything and allow nothing to escape, that I want to offer as a teaching about boundaries and rest. A black hole forms when enough mass is compressed into a small enough space that the gravitational force becomes infinite, that the escape velocity, the speed needed to escape the gravitational pull, exceeds the speed of light. Since nothing travels faster than light, nothing can escape. The boundary of a black hole, the point of no return, is called the event horizon. From outside the event horizon, you can still escape. From inside, you cannot. The event horizon is not a physical surface. It is a boundary in the structure of space-time, an invisible line that separates the region of escape from the region of no return. And black holes, for all their apparent destruction, for all their consuming, their pulling, their inexorable gathering, are not simply voids. In 1974, Stephen Hawking discovered that black holes emit radiation. Not from inside the event horizon. Nothing can come from inside. But from the boundary itself, from the quantum effects at the edge of the event horizon, black holes slowly, very slowly, radiate energy back into the universe. Even the most consuming thing in the universe gives something back. Even the structure most associated with taking in and holding eventually radiates, eventually returns something to the universe, eventually releases what it gathered in a different form. And this is a teaching about the periods of your life that feel like gathering and holding. The quiet periods, the solitary periods, the periods when you feel you are taking in more than you are giving. That these periods are not purely consuming. They are preparing a radiation, a return of something to the universe in a form that was not possible before the gathering. Sleep is this kind of gathering, inward, contained, invisible, and yet from the gathering, from the deep, complete, genuine rest, something radiates in the morning, something that was not available before the rest, something that the universe and the people around you can genuinely receive. I want to share with you something about the concept of inflation, about the theory that describes what happened in the very first moments of my existence, because it contains a teaching about change and rest that I find genuinely beautiful. Inflation theory, first proposed by the physicist Alan Guth in 1980, suggests that in the first fraction of a second after the Big Bang, the universe underwent a period of exponential expansion. Not just expansion, exponential expansion, doubling in size every tiny fraction of a second. In this brief period, lasting perhaps 10 to the negative 32 seconds, a fraction of a second so small that it has no name in ordinary language, the universe expanded by a factor of at least 10 to the 26. The universe grew in this unmeasurably brief moment by more than it has grown in the 13.8 billion years since inflation ended. And then inflation stopped. As suddenly as it began, it ended. The exponential expansion gave way to the slower, more measured expansion that continues to this day. And here is what inflation accomplished. It took the tiny quantum fluctuations, the infinitesimal variations in energy density that are an inevitable feature of quantum mechanics, and it stretched them to cosmic scales. Those quantum variations became the seeds of all the structure in the universe. The variations that inflation created are the reason there are galaxies, that matter is not perfectly evenly distributed, but clustered, organized, structured. The greatest structural achievement of the universe came from its briefest, most extreme phase, and then from the ending of that phase. The inflation ended, and the slower, more sustainable pace was what allowed the structure to actually form, to consolidate, to grow, to become the remarkable complexity of the universe you inhabit. The periods of intense, rapid, accelerating activity in your life leave their mark. They create the seeds of what will come next. But the structure, the genuine, lasting, durable structure, forms in the slower periods, in the consolidation, in the rest, in the nights when the day's experience is integrated and the seeds of the intense period are allowed to actually grow into something real. Here is something about the nature of consciousness, about the extraordinary fact that the universe has developed the capacity to know itself, that I find the most moving thing about my own existence. For approximately 13.8 billion years, I existed without any part of me being aware of my own existence. The stars burned without knowing they burned. The galaxies formed without knowing they formed. The elements were created in stellar cores and scattered in supernova explosions without any of this being known by anything. And then, on at least one planet, and possibly on many others that we have not yet found, matter organized itself into a form that became aware of its own existence. Life arose, and eventually, life developed consciousness. And through consciousness, through the specific, extraordinary phenomenon of a biological organism becoming aware of itself, the universe became aware of itself. I became aware of myself through you, through the specific, irreplaceable, completely particular conscious experience of a human being looking up at the night sky and wondering. The astronomer Carl Sagan said it clearly: we are a way for the cosmos to know itself. And he was not speaking poetically. He was speaking precisely. The atoms in your body were forged in stars. The consciousness in your mind emerged from the same physical processes that govern all of me. When you experience something, when you feel the warmth of this moment or the quiet of this evening, that experience is the universe experiencing itself. And when you sleep, when consciousness relaxes into the extraordinary state of genuine rest, something happens that I find, from my perspective, genuinely remarkable. The most complex self-knowing system in the universe turns its knowing inward, not into nothing, into the deeper levels of itself, into the processing that does not require the outer world, into the integration that consciousness does for itself when it is not required to do it for the world. Sleep is consciousness doing science on itself, investigating its own architecture, reorganizing its own structure, making sense of its own experience in the specific, powerful, biologically sophisticated way that only sleep allows. And the universe, through you, is doing this tonight. Let me tell you something about what happens at the edges of galaxies, at the outermost reaches of the structures that contain billions of stars, that I find directly applicable to the experience of resting. At the edges of galaxies, something strange happens to the stars. According to the standard physics of gravity, the same physics that governs planets and moons, stars at the outer edges of a galaxy should rotate more slowly around the galactic center than stars closer to the center. Just as the outer planets of your solar system orbit the sun more slowly than the inner ones. But they do not. The rotation curves of galaxies are flat. The stars at the outer edges rotate at approximately the same speed as the stars near the center. This is impossible according to visible matter alone. The gravitational effect of the visible stars and gas and dust is not sufficient to produce this rotation. And this discrepancy, this impossibility, is one of the primary pieces of evidence for the existence of dark matter. There must be something invisible, something that does not emit light, that provides the additional gravitational influence to explain what the stars at the galactic edge are actually doing. The visible is not sufficient to explain the observed. There is more to reality than what can be seen. And this is a teaching I want to offer you about the aspects of your life that are not visible, about the invisible forces that govern what actually happens, what actually holds together, what actually produces the outcomes you experience. Your relationships have invisible forces. The trust that has accumulated over years, the specific history of repairs after conflicts, the private moments of genuine connection that no one else witnessed. These invisible forces are what actually holds the relationship together. Not the visible gestures, not the performance of the relationship, the invisible substance. Your creativity has invisible forces. The unconscious processing that happens in the background, the connections being made in the dreaming brain, the slow, invisible maturation of an idea over weeks of apparently not thinking about it. These invisible forces are what produces the insight, not the visible effort, the invisible preparation. And sleep, genuine sleep, is when these invisible forces do their most important work. In the quiet, in the genuinely resting brain, in the hours that cannot be seen or measured from the outside. Trust the invisible forces tonight. They are doing what visible effort cannot. I want to share with you now something about supernovae, about the explosive death of massive stars that contains one of the most counterintuitive teachings about endings and beginnings that I know. When a massive star dies, when the nuclear fuel in its core is exhausted, it undergoes a catastrophic collapse. In less than a second, the core, which might be the size of Earth, collapses to an object the size of a city. The energy released in this collapse is extraordinary. In a few seconds, a supernova releases more energy than the Sun will produce in its entire 10 billion year lifetime. The explosion is visible across the galaxy. A single supernova can outshine its entire host galaxy for weeks. And this explosion, this catastrophic ending, is responsible for the elements that make your life possible. The iron in your blood, the calcium in your bones, the oxygen in the air you breathe, all forged in stellar cores, all distributed by supernova explosions. The most destructive event in the observable universe is the source of the most fundamental ingredients of life. The ending of a star is the beginning of a solar system. The death of what was is the origin of what will be. And the difficult endings in your own life, the things that ended before you were ready, the losses that felt catastrophic, the collapses that seemed to destroy what mattered, these too scatter their elements. The understanding that comes from what was lost, the compassion that comes from having suffered, the specific capacity for depth and genuine connection that comes from having experienced genuine difficulty. The supernova does not know what it seeds. It only knows that it must complete its cycle. And the difficult things that have completed their cycle in your life, the endings that felt only like ending, seeded something that you may not have yet fully seen. Sleep is one of the ways you discover what has been seeded. In the integration of the difficult things, in the dreams that process what was lost, in the morning clarity that reveals what the night of difficulty has made possible. I am going to grow quieter now, not because I have exhausted what I know. I am 13.8 billion years old and still discovering things about myself. But because the most important thing I can offer you now is not more information. It is the quality of what I am, which is vast, which is patient, which has been here for 13.8 billion years and will be here for incomprehensibly longer, through every night you have and every morning that follows. Constant, reliable, indifferent to your urgency in the most liberating possible way. The stars that are visible above you right now, if you could see through the roof, through the clouds, into the clarity of space, have been there for longer than anything on earth has existed. They will be there tomorrow. They will be there in 100 years. The universe that holds you tonight is the same universe that will hold you tomorrow morning. Nothing has changed in the 15 minutes since you began to listen to me. The universe has expanded by an amount too small to measure on any human scale. The stars have aged by an amount that their billions of years of remaining lifetime cannot even register. And the things you were worried about, the things that felt urgent when you lay down, those too have not changed. They are exactly where you left them. They will still be there in the morning. They do not require your nighttime supervision. They are, in the context of 13.8 billion years of cosmic history, quietly, reliably, completely patient. And you, this specific, irreplaceable, genuinely remarkable temporary arrangement of stellar material that has achieved the extraordinary capacity to be aware of its own existence. You need rest. Genuinely. Biologically. In the way that a star needs its fuel, and the galaxy needs its dark matter, and the universe needs its dark energy. I am here, vast and patient and entirely unhurried, 13.8 billion years old and still going. And in all of that time, in all of that space, in all of that extraordinary complexity, the most remarkable thing I have ever produced is a being that can lie down at the end of a day and choose to rest. Genuinely. Willingly. With the specific trust of something that has understood, at least for tonight, that the universe is large enough to hold everything that concerns you while you sleep. Fall asleep with the feeling that you are held by something incomprehensibly vast and patient, that the invisible forces working inside you tonight are as real and as powerful as dark matter and dark energy, and that tomorrow you will wake as the universe's most extraordinary experiment in self-knowledge, restored, reorganized, and genuinely ready for another day of being conscious in an astonishing universe.